Hey viewers, today we're going to do an unboxing of some used cars. There should be 4 Konami cars here and I think 2 Kyosho 164 scale cars in this box. So hopefully the order is done properly. I bought these off eBay and I'm not sure if these are like just a personal collection being sold off or a dealer. I don't know if these are new or used. It's hard to... But I do know that they're old. Yeah, I think they're used in maybe a personal collection. Okay, well, we got some packing in there. I'll get this box out of the way. Okay, so as usual, I'm going to try to do the order of these cars and the year that the real car came out. So, there's a Honda. The last one will be this Porsche. A lot of bubble wrap going on here. Kind of interesting that the bubble wrap isn't taped, but that's fine. It actually makes my life a little easier. Okay, so we have a Honda, Galant GTO, a Skyline, a Ferrari here. That's a kit. It's not, that's gotta be new because it's not been opened. Well, it's not been assembled. The Testarossa there. All right, so let's get this little spinning thing out there. So we'll see what there is. All right, so we're gonna start with this old one here. This 1967 Honda N360. Yeah, this is new. It's totally sealed blister pack. So maybe I don't know. The seller's name on eBay is XDD. I did a video before, and I did see this bubbling in the picture. I just figured this is an old die-cast. This is one that's by Konami. So, you know, this is a very old Honda, never sold in America. It's actually considered a K car, which is a special class of cars in Japan where the engines have to be under 660 cc's, which is quite small by car standards. I mean, they're motorcycles with bigger engines than 660 cc's, and they have around 60 horsepower. No, I'm sorry, I think this one actually had around 30 horsepower, this actual Honda. But the K car regulations in Japan say you can have up to 60 horsepower and 660 cc's. But this being an old K car, 1967, it's got around 30 horsepower, and it's an air-cooled engine. 30 horsepower is kind of ridiculous. I think there are lawnmowers nowadays with as powerful engines as that. So, okay, try to focus here. So it's still a great model here. This does say Konami down there, and it says 2005 when this mold or whatever was made. So that's 15 years old, this particular die cast. So, you know, I guess I have to accept that bubbling on there. And this car was probably really cheap when it first retailed. But even though it was cheap maybe when it was new, there's actually some suspension in this car, which is quite amazing. You got the OEM wheels, although they're not the most greatest detail, but they are very small wheels. So, but there is some printing here. This little side badge. Hopefully you can see that. Right. The taillights and stuff are just painted on, but the Honda printing there on the trunk handle is pretty nice. The glass is nice and clear. The door handle is painted silver, and there's a yellow painted bump there for the indicator. There are some passive vents back here, but they're just painted the same body color. What's a nice touch is this little window frame here is painted silver. It's different from the white of the car. And then there's some printing or paint on the window surround, mimicking some sort of chrome rubber molding, I guess. Really cool. I mean, the front of this thing, you got the old H logo and some really nicely painted yellow indicators, and then the good old plastic headlights there. So that's a really great car. All right, very neat. Very happy to add that to the collection. I just enjoy the fact that it's so small and ridiculous looking. All right, so the next one is this Nissan Fairlady Z. Yeah, great. So this is also another new product. I think I'm gonna guess all these are new, because clearly, yeah, new packaging. Boy, it's kind of a pain to get this guy out. Okay, so on the little stand here, in Japan, it's called the Nissan Fairlady Z. This is the first generation, the S30. Came out in 1969. In America, it's called the Datsun 240z. It's like one of the first Japanese sporty cars introduced to America. Alright, let's make sure we're focused here. You can see a 432 on the side. I honestly didn't research what that is, what that means. It's on the base plate, but I didn't think much of it. Interesting, this model now has a white license plate, and it is Konami, and this actually came out a year before the first one. This is 2004, and it has license plates, whereas this one does not, even though it's a later, newer model. So that's interesting. Being a bigger model, I guess they were able to fit in these plastic tail lights. The exhaust tips are pretty weak though, just solid silver there. Ooh, that's a nice touch there on the rear deck, or the trunk, the hatchback, I guess. I guess those black things must be like some sort of passive ventilation. Again, it says a 432 here, and then Datsun or Fairlady? No, it says Nissan. That badge there. It's really hard to see, especially when I have my camera in front of my face. Okay, so yeah, there's another printing here. The fuel filler cap is really filled in though. They gotta lay on the white paint really thick to try to cover up the casting, but you can still see a lot of casting coming through on this door panel line. Alright, cool ribbing here on the top there. I can get that stain out. Logo printing there. Wow, that's a really nice crisp interior. Unfortunately, you guys might not be able to see it being black and on this camera, but there is a brown steering wheel in there as well. Now there, I think you can see it. And then for this model, actually, even though it's old, really old, I don't see any paint blemishes, really. There's some stains that I wiped off with my hand, and another stain I just wiped off there. But there's no like wrinkling, there's no contaminants in the paint, there's no bubbling, unlike the first Honda. So that's a great model. All right. Okay, so let's go with the next one, which is this orange one, this Mitsubishi Galant GTO MR. Boy, this is a long title. Let me just read this whole thing. This is a Mitsubishi Galant GTO MR A53C-GR 1970. My goodness. Anyway, so GTO actually is Italian for Gran Turismo homologation, which basically means Gran Turismo approved. So you guys might know the GTO and amongst Ferrari cars. Alright, so let me take this up the stand here. Okay, let's take a close look here. You have an MR there behind the front wheel. Really cool crisp black printing line here on the side of the body, and at the back you have a silver printing there. It says Galant in script. I can't read with the naked eye what that text is in front of the Galant. Maybe the camera, the video will show it, but I can't see it with my naked eye. Anyways, we have a painted on license plate. It's blank though. And then it says Galant again on the trunk. And I guess that's the old Mitsubishi logo. I don't recognize it. I'm just used to the 3 diamonds. These taillights are plastic inserts, which is really cool. Or I'm guessing this whole black thing is the same red and it's just painted. These backup lights are painted. Again, the muffler tip's not so great, which makes me think, how old is this model now? This came out in 2005. Okay, you'll notice it's riveted in there. There's some tread to these tires. Nice little touch. Okay, let's get to the front here. Yeah, so we got the plastic insert headlights there. Really nice. I'm guessing these must be the turn signals because I can see a little bit of like a dark orange going on in there. They just painted in the black of the grille. And then we painted on these little air scoops. They're probably fake air scoops on the real car. Oh, but there's a paint bubbling right here. So I bet if I scratched that it would come off. But obviously I'm not going to do that. But again, you know, for a 15-year-old car that was really cheap, I guess I'm okay with it. Again, suspension is pretty cool touch. I mean, TLV has suspension, but TLVs are really expensive compared to these. And then these wheels are pretty nice too. You know, they're just Steelies or whatever, but pretty nice. A little information on the Galant. You know, this has a little inline 4-cylinder, it's rear-wheel drive. And you might notice the styling is very similar to like Mustangs or Cougars or Firebirds. And I looked up why. The designer, Kamisago, a Japanese person, he went to Art Center College of Design in California. So Art Center College is, in my opinion, the best design school for car styling and industrial design in general. So that person that went to that school and saw all these other students and Westerners, you know, LA is the car culture of the hub of car culture in America. So maybe he picked up some ideas and incorporated them into this particular design. Okay, so one other interesting thing is there's no B pillar. It's just a full roll down window. I don't know if this little window in the back rolls down or not, but there's no actual steel structure there. So this A pillar must be super strong, and then obviously the back pillar is really strong. So I guess this car was designed to go racing by Mitsubishi, but OPEC had an embargo, so Mitsubishi canceled all the racing plans for this thing. Anyway, so it's kind of like a miniature Mustang Fastback or something. We'll let that spin. All right. So what is next? Chronologically, it would be this Skyline KPGC110, 1973. Now, if you look in my history of videos, I ordered a Konami one, oh no, a Kyosho one off AliExpress, and it turned out to be fake. It turned out to be like an Ook coffee one, I think. That's what we figured out, the community and I. So I'm going to pull out both cars here. Well, actually, while that spins, we'll look at this first. So this Skyline is nicknamed the Phantom GTR because they didn't make many of them. They only sold for 4 months back in 1973. And there's a couple theories behind why they sold only made 197 of these cars. Some people think it's because they only had 197 engines from the previous GTR or Skyline. Others think it's just a lack of carburetors available. And then I think on a Nissan website, they said it was the emissions, ever stricter emissions, that forced this to not be produced in greater numbers. It was never raced officially by Nissan either, so I guess that's why they call it the Phantom. It is a 4th generation Skyline. It is an inline 6, 2 liters up front here. So let's talk about the actual diecast now. Well, you know, there's this printing back here, although it's really hard to see silver on silver, but it does say Skyline right where I'm pointing, and some sort of badge there. This is printed on, this little emblem here, even though it's silver on silver again. Door handle is not painted, I don't think, because the body is silver. Obviously these fenders are painted black, and little tiny indications of riveting going on. Let's take a look when this was made. So this again was made in 2005. Okay. Different steel wheels. Really nice. I'm really starting to appreciate Konami's more. Before I was all about Kyosho, but I mean these are nice cars. They're definitely on the same level as Kyosho, and I think although everyone seems to love TLV, I've had a bad run with those guys. Most 80% of my TLVs have paint rash, but I can't say the same. Although this actually, yeah, now that I think about it, there is a contaminant, or maybe the casting wasn't very good right where I'm scraping there. And then there's some actual physical scrapes in there. So this casting wasn't very good when they either pulled it out of the mold or maybe threw it in a bin with other castings, and that's why the roof of this thing got scratched up. Okay, so yeah, there is this logo here, and it's at the grill here. Hopefully that focused. I don't know. On my screen it looks like it did, but anyways, they painted on the lights here. But yeah, plastic inserts there. I can make it a tiny texture in the grill, very tiny. Could be painted, because I don't feel it with the pointer. I don't want to scrape it too hard though. So yeah, again here, the casting itself isn't so great. You can see it's missing material there. So, but really nice clear coat on this thing. It's really thick. Alright, so now I'm going to pull out the fake one that I bought that I thought was a Kyosho. So the bottom one is the fake, or if you're okay with an UK coffee, UCC coffee, that's the one on the bottom. So what really irked me about this is the fact it was advertised as a Kyosho, and it is not. It's actually not a bad model though, but for $10 it is a bad model. If it was like $5 it'd be a great model. What bothers me is the lack of air gaps between the spokes. Let's take a look at the fronts. So clearly the Konami looks better because it has the plastic headlights instead of this look one having painted on ones. And you notice the interesting detail differences here. The body of this Konami is a little more rounded, whereas this one looks a little blockier. The Konami, the UK one just has solid axles, you can see them, whereas again this has suspension. Let's go to the top. So it's a darker silver on the UK coffee one, and also darker, totally black fender flares, where it's like a more of a matte finish, or possibly actually it looks more like a gunmetal gray on this Konami one here, this fender flare. Both of them have indentations though for riveting. On the Konami it's got bigger exhaust vents here, or smoother looking, where these are more angular. The Konami does have molded in windshield wipers, but they're clear, they're not painted. So these actually aren't too far apart as far as quality goes, but realism wise Konami's got it because it's got clear windows and it has plastic lights. So we're looking at the back now, which we haven't done yet on the Konami, but the Konami one has inset plastic here for the tail lights, whereas the UK one, they're just painted red dots. And it's interesting that this actually has a chrome piece of plastic for the rear bumper on the Konami, and you can see the rivets here for the wing are much bigger on the Konami. So, and then there's this little white license plate printed on. The Konami is definitely a better car. I still have to get well, I don't know if I'm going to buy a Kyosho one though. This is pretty darn good. Alright, let's move on here. Okay, so it's 2 more to go. So it's Ferrari Testarossa. Testarossa being one word, not Testarossa, which is the old 60s car that this thing is named after. This is the 1984 Testarossa. Think like Miami Vice and stuff like that with Crockett and Tubbs. Whoa. So I'm not gonna put this kit together. For those uninitiated, Kyosho sold these Ferraris as model kits so they could sell them without the proper license from Ferrari. Okay, but anyways, so this car, it was the replacement for the Ferrari 512 BB, and the most prominent design feature are these massive strakes, and it created, you know, a new design theme within Ferrari. It was carried over to the 348. But the reason why those strakes are there is this is a flat 12-cylinder back here, and it obviously creates a lot of heat, so it needs a lot of cooling. So there's a giant side scoop to cool the engine, but European and American laws didn't allow giant intakes because they were afraid of people getting caught in that. Maybe your hand gets caught in it or something, or your arm gets sucked in there. So these strakes are supposed to prevent large objects from being able to be sucked into those side vents. So that's the reasoning behind the big strakes there. Okay. So another interesting thing I find from a design perspective is how wide the rear is compared to the front. And again, it's because you have a giant 12-cylinder, flat 12-cylinder even, which makes it really wide. And then the cooling itself, so that forced a really wide rear end. So I wouldn't be surprised if owners of these vehicles like clip the rear end around certain things because, well, the mirrors should hopefully help them. But okay, let's get this plastic thing's annoying. Alright, so in typical Kyosho fashion, you got your same stuff as the Konamis. The logo printing, the plastic insert lights are great. You know, this says Ferrari there on the rear engine cover. One thing that seemed to have missed on this particular car is they didn't paint the horse here on the rear grille. It's just black plastic. They should have hit it with a little silver. I guess you could hit it with a silver Sharpie and it should be okay. There is molding for a license plate, but it's just red. It's not painted. I do like the fact that it has two side mirrors. The very first Testarossa sold in the US at least only had one mirror, which would seem ridiculous on a high-end vehicle. It took a while for Ferrari to realize that people want to have two mirrors on a supercar. Well, this is a supercar for 1984. By today's standards, it's pretty slow. 0 to 60 on this thing was like 5.8 seconds, which is kind of fast, but not by 2020 standards. You know, when you have supercars that can actually out-accelerate super motorcycles, that's pretty crazy, really. Alright, but anyways, I guess there's one paint defect that I'm noticing on this one. There's some contaminant under the paint, right where I'm pointing there, right here. So it's not a matter of paint rash, just literally was something contaminating the paint. There's no bubbling going on, so it's just bad luck, I guess. Alright. Well, yeah, I'm not going to put on the spinning thing because the sandpaper on this street will scratch the paint. Okay, so the very last one is the first generation Porsche Boxster. Some people call it Porsche. Some people, I think Germans call it Porsche. But I say Porsche out of laziness. So the story behind the Boxster, if anyone's really young, you know, this thing came out originally in 1996. And it was the first mid-engine slash water-cooled engine behind that wasn't located in the front of the car. You know, the 996, 911 that came out afterwards, it had it in the rear, behind the rear axle. This one is actually mid-engine, so it's actually ahead of the rear axle, but still behind the drivers, so it's a mid-engine. And there's a lot of annoying, like, controversy or whining, I guess, by the community, saying it was blasphemy to have a water-cooled engine in a Porsche. But, you know, emission standards, making more power, making more compact engines, you got to go to water-cooled. You got to go to fuel injection, you know, reliability and efficiency. So you can't stop progress. But Porsche ultimately did the right thing, because even though this diecast is the first generation, they're already on their 4th generation Boxster. And then the Cayman is the hardtop version, the coupe version of the same chassis. But you know this is the first generation because it has these, I don't know, L-shaped or bit jelly bean shaped headlights. And I think it's okay. I remember when I first saw this car come out, reading about it in the magazines, I thought it looked pretty sweet actually. But then when the 911 came out, the 997 series, no, the 996 series that had the same front end, it's just ugly. It was one of the least favored 911s of all time, I think. At the time, or prior to this coming out, Porsche was in big financial trouble. They weren't doing very well because the 928 wasn't doing well, and then the 944, 968 series, those just didn't sell well either. This car helped turn them around, I think, and helped them become a more profitable company again. Okay, so anyways, to the diecast, yeah, you got your standard wheels here. Kyoshos do not have suspension, by the way, for anyone that's new to collecting these things. But I do like that both companies write the name of the car on it. You know, we know what car this is. Now this one, unfortunately, Kyosho doesn't say what year it was made, but there is a little paint rash going on here. Something going on around there. I don't think it's a case of contaminants. I think it's the zinc causing a problem. There is a fuel filler cap here, but the paint, this red paint, is laid in so thick that it's barely noticeable. Yeah, so whoever painted this wasn't really paying attention, doing a good job. Look at all these body seams. They're all filled in with paint. They're not very crisp at all. The only plus side of that is you don't see the zinc. Right? Kind of like this 240z, where you can kind of see the darkness of the zinc metal. On this red car, you can't see it at all, but it also looks, it just doesn't look as realistic, I guess, to have such smoothed over panel lines. Okay, well anyways, this is convertible. We got a black interior. Pretty good detail. There actually is molded detail of the gauges in the instrument cluster, but being black, I don't think we can see it on the video camera. There's a black Boxster script here on the trunk. So it is legible to my eye. Maybe not the camera, I don't think it can focus. So yeah, you got the tail lights here, plastic. The central exhaust, but it's just raw black, the same as the bottom. I would think the real one might have it chrome or silver. I don't know. I don't know if I suspect Kyosho just got lazy and didn't bother painting that, because you know, economy cars just have the raw steel, but a Porsche would definitely have some sort of separate exhaust tip, you know, clamped onto that. I just don't think it'll be black like that. Alright, so anyways, the wiper blades are molded into the windshield, but they are painted black, so that's pretty cool. Alright. Well, so on the whole, I guess a pretty good run of cars here I ordered off eBay. I mean, the only major problem was this one, but I knew about it when I bought it, and it was new in the package. It's just that this is an old car. It's 15 years old, and I guess bad luck with the zinc causing some bubbling there. Okay, guys, we'll catch you the next time. See ya.